and welcome back to Call Your Coven. I'm B. My pronouns are she, her, and I am your resident numerologist.
I'm Jeanna. My pronouns are also she, her, and I am your resident astrologer.
And I'm Maeg. My pronouns are she, they, and I am the resident tarot reader.
Yeah. And I wanted to start off today by talking about a spell that I am currently casting that is not working. So I'm
Not
bringing
working.
it
Like, which also mood, who among us?
It's also mood.
Yeah. And when you hear it, you're going to be like, okay, this is not working. You just like need to put it in a better spot. But, okay, I'm currently having a relationship with the crows in my neighborhood. It's a crow working. First of all, you have to know that we call them all Cheryl. Like whenever we see a crow, we're like, hello, Cheryl, how are you doing?
Great place to start. I'm already invested.
Yeah. So, and there's a full murder of crows that like live in our neighborhood, but there are, I believe, one or two that are making themselves known, like to our house. They fly outside my office window. They like land on our house. So the other day, one of our caretakers and our friends was leaving, and I was like broken out in a full body hive situation. And it was a really dramatic exit. And when I walked out so that she could get in her car, underneath our covered porch was like a single perfect crow feather. And it felt like such a communication and such like a gift. And because it's right where they usually land. And so obviously it's on my altar, but then I was like, I need to now make an offering to the crow. I was using this little spell or like mantra from an Instagram witch. It said to find a treasure, like a marble or a button or something to offer the crow. And so I picked something shiny that was meaningful to me, and I left it out on the like bathroom. Our bathroom has like a windowsill that's right by that area of the house. And so I put it there, and it said to like say a little mantra. And then if by the morning it's gone, then you're in an unlikely pact, like with this crow, and expect odd luck or whatever. But it didn't disappear overnight. It is very much still there. I'm like, oh no. And I'm very proud of my wife for not being like a parent and like taking it in the middle of the night just so that I would be like, I feel like that's the witch version of Santa.
Like the tooth fairy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to leave it somewhere else. It's more accessible to the crow. But that's where I'm at. I'm trying to work with a crow, and it didn't accept my gift.
I mean, I have thoughts, but Jeanna, do you want to say something first?
I'm gonna let you go first because I know you've got.
Well, I have two thoughts. Okay. My first thought is that the crows. I say this is an aspiring crow girly, gender neutral. We're starting to have crows.
They're coming to our.
I've been working
coming to our house
almost 2 years trying to befriend the crows in our neighborhood. We have a very, very small yard, which is part of it. They haven't landed in our yard basically at all, but we have a tree in our yard, and they've been hanging out in the tree, and they've been watching me, and I am very excited about it. But the fact that the crows are coming to your space feels like a great sign, but that's not the same as you having a relationship with the crows. And so I would say that before. And I don't know anything about crow magic. I don't know what the intention of that is or like what the goal of it is. But I would say that my initial thought is starting to build a relationship with the crows by like leaving them peanuts or leaving them like, black sunflower seeds or putting out some water for them or like making it clear that this is a welcoming space for them and actually letting them see you do that and starting to actually build the relationship with the crows might be a more manageable first step before then going straight to magic, which is another way of saying what if mundane though before magic. But
no, this is very June 2025 from a numerological
Right, love
Yeah.
that. Incredible. But that was my initial like real first thought was like, okay, but have you like talked to the crows, like literally spoken to them? Have you left out peanuts for them? Have you sat with them? Have you made a welcoming space for them to show them that you see that they're coming and you want them to feel safe there? It could be that the charm needs to go somewhere else, or the little object needs to go somewhere else, like where you usually leave your peanuts if they end up coming to the same spot.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, that was my first thought is like, do you have a relationship with the crows, or are they just hanging out, you know?
I think it's like an in between. It's a secret third thing.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we have a budding relationship, but yes, I have not made any mundane offerings to them. I feel like the feather was the first physical part.
That's very meaningful, for sure.
Like, that's so lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I immediately was like, okay, I must engage in whatever way. But like, you're right, that even if my intentions were to start building that relationship, like I totally agree. We have not yet had like any kind of physical exchange. So yeah, time and effort is what I'm hearing.
And I do think that like there's a lot of magic in that kind of mundanity. I don't think that leaving, like when Meg leaves peanuts for the crows and the one big fat squirrel in our yard, it's who bless, like we love them. Like that's not magic, you know, that's not exchange. The word that you described when you were from the working that was taken from this other individual, the word that my brain keeps sticking on and like circling the drain on is pact. And I don't know, this is actually something like we've never talked about in our friendship, like how we approach pacts, but like that's a word that is very, very big, and that's a relationship that's like huge, really. To have a pact with something like so it also feels less like the spell didn't work. Like the crows are coming, they're leaving feathers. Like it's not that the spell didn't work, it's not that the relationship isn't budding, but also like jumping, it's like getting married to someone. Like a pact, that's how I think of a pact. Like there's, you know, a reason that it's not something I do lightly or often at all. And it's because I see it. And I know there are different traditions and different ways of thought that don't see them as being that like long term or whatnot. But to me, I'm like making a pact with something. It's like a negotiation. It's a negotiation of time also. Like I'll do this for X amount of time, for X number of ways, for this long, or it's a lifelong thing. So it also strikes me that like maybe it's not that the crows are rejecting it. It's just that they're like, we're not ready for this step yet. Like we have to build this and get to know you, and they want to get to know you, and you want to get to know them, and that's fucking awesome.
And I'm super grateful that you brought that up, because for me, what I heard was like, oh, it's not my language. Like I didn't take that word seriously. And also like this was a working that I did borrow from someone else. And I think even that is, again, good intentioned.
And also something that happens all the time. Like people pray the Psalms.
100%.
Oh, you know, hymns exist.
Like,
yeah, but like you pointing out that verbiage is like, oh, right. I don't know that is exactly what I'm looking to create here, but because I used someone else's working and that's the word that they used, that's a really good point. Like, I don't even know if I'm looking to make a pact. Like, what do I even think about the idea of a pact? And for me, that just didn't pop out at me. Because it was like, oh, I'm leaving this thing and I'm saying these words. And yeah, of course, we're talking about this. This is so much of like 6 energy, which we'll talk about in June. Like, what are the things that build a relationship, and what are kind of like we defined community in our last conversation, like defining what kind of working relationship we're even looking to engage in is really important before I'm a hop to magic, like trash magic girly. gender neutral.
This is like a whole episode topic is the
I
problem.
know. I do
I'm
actually
like,
think we should make a combo out of this.
Okay.
we should
really
tape
good.
like put a pin in this because I have a lot of
Stay
thoughts.
tuned for more.
Stay tuned for more.
Also,
Also,
to cut the
I just
conversation off, but I do think that it's a
No,
whole.
this could definitely be a good Gemini season conversation, I feel. So
Yeah.
I also I want to thank you for your vulnerability in saying that, because I think sometimes when you're like a really public figure or you've made some kind of spiritual practice your profession, like there's a lot of vulnerability in saying, even if it's not like you're not talking numerology here, but like even if it's in an area where you like it is a little more like trash magic girly, chaos magic girly, like there's a lot of vulnerability in saying, hey, I did something and I don't think it worked, you guys. Like what do I do? And I feel like that's just so affirming for everyone to be reminded that like people who do this professionally actually like are also just figuring it out. And I just want to say thank you for like being willing to bring that to the table.
oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks for engaging with it. I did feel like a little kid on Christmas morning. Like I went to the bathroom this morning and I like peeked out the window and I was like, I went back to bed and I was like, it's still there.
On the note, though, of you being like, and Stacy didn't fuck with it, I do think there is something to the non-magical partners of magical practitioners where they're like, I don't really know that, but I know enough to stay away from it, to not touch it.
Like I'm not going
not
to
bother it,
too much.
and to just let it be.
None of my business.
Yeah. Stacy was fully engaged in this magical working for sure. And I didn't really give her a choice. I was like, we are talking about this now. But she it was very funny. She came outside with me, like she helped me pick the place that we were going to leave it. She was like, I think it should be in the front yard because that's where your gift was left. So like now it should be left. The offering should be left.
I love Stacy, dear God.
Right? I love that.
Yes. So she's like holding the dog, and I noticed that where we wanted to leave them, there were like a bunch of spider eggs, and I was like, okay, this actually needs to get cleaned up in order for me to make this offering, because this is not like a safe space for the crow to come. And she was like, okay, well, I don't have the energy to do all this, so just I'm gonna go in the couch and like let me know when it's left.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
So she was very involved, and then physically hit a limit when I wanted to start like cleaning the outside of our house for the Christmas.
Yeah.
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, please do.
I'm gonna thank you for your.
And maybe we'll do an episode on different kinds of relationships with deity and planet and spirit and star and different kinds of devotion.
Yeah.
What a pact is, for example, if that's new language to listeners. Like,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
No, I think we should. I think we should.
I think that's awesome.
Okay, well, this is very, like I've already said, this is very June 2025. I'm looking at these number energies as a whole this year because of this 9. You know, we have collective all ending energy all year. And then because of that, all of our monthly numbers are really rooted in like, what are the core experiences of these numbers? So when I think about 6, it could feel like a breath of fresh air or like a burst of energy. I do love that we are out of the messy middle, so to speak, of 5 and this goblin mode energy. And we're moving into 6, which is over the hump. It's like now we're into the latter half of the spiral. 6 is a mental number. We're expanding our mind. There's opportunity here for us to feel relief, to feel joy, to feel like, you know, to quote Jeanna, thank fuck we're here. And I do think that that's what we can really center this month is beauty, love, joy, pleasure. Like we are continuing those art vibes of May and really kind of rooting into what makes this experience pleasurable, what brings ease to our lives. You know, 6 is a very caring, generous, nurturing number. And what I want to point out, I think what's kind of poking me as could be sticky is that 6 is where the rubber meets the road in terms of building new habits and behavior based on where we are and who we are now that we're over the hump. So in terms of a monthly forecast, May gets to be its transitional chaotic period. And then in June, we're like taking a breath first and foremost. Like June has big take a nap energy. Like if you need to put yourself to bed to get through something, like if you need to pause before engaging in something, do that. Like find center is kind of the practical advice of June. But I think this energy can be kind of frustrating because what I say about 6 is like the day that you get the cast off is not the day that you run the marathon.
Mhm.
So where we might feel free from whatever our cast is, we're like, okay, we've healed this bone. It's not broken anymore. But that doesn't mean that it's at like full working capacity. If you want to recover from whatever it is that you has really been turned over in your life already this year, you have to do things differently than you did before. And this is really the opportunity to figure out how you are going to do that. So 6 is nitty gritty. It's day to day. We don't build day to day in crisis. I can say that from my own experience. Like crisis really reveals the nature of relationships. And so I think that's going to be a lot of June, as well as like sitting with what has been revealed and figuring out how to move forward in a way that honors all parties involved. That feels very like poetic, but kind of, and we've been talking a lot about community and in our last conversation and defining that and what it means to do quote unquote the work on yourself so that you can be in healthy conflict with others and keep reciprocity going, like the needs of yourself and the needs of others. I think that's going to be really highlighted in June. But 6 energy does offer us like a softness with which we can move into these conflicts. And so 6 says everyone is doing the best they can with the tools and the information that they have at the time. And if 6 is the expanding mind, then it's also offering the perspective of generative conflict, meaning like what we learn through these crisis points about ourselves, about others, we can shift our own perspectives based on what it is that we're learning. So this has already come up in my Discord this week, which is so cool right after I wrote about it. If there's one thing that you can do in June that is actually really practical and gentle, it's to assume best intentions in others. A lot of times if something happens and it hits us in a funky way, we go straight to that person's terrible. How could they do that to me? You know, all of these things. And like all of those feelings are real. But if we can really assume that the people that we are around are coming to the table with best intentions, then we can tend to our feelings, but we can shift into a more logical place, like before engaging and continuing vulnerability work. So Jeanna made a joke earlier about always having a farming metaphor. I ended with farming metaphors, of course. So what is growing in June, right? What is blooming? We're taking stock of the garden. So doing more of what you enjoy in June, but also kind of enjoying the effort put forth, not being afraid to break a sweat metaphorically or or literally, I guess, into relationships. Yeah, there's a lot swimming in my soup for June. So I'm gonna hand it off. I'm excited to see what you both have to say.
No, there's a lot of what you said, B, that feels resonant. Some stuff feels different than the astrology, but a lot like your note about 6 is care. So many planets are in Cancer in June, which is the big thing of the month that I'll get into shortly. And then also the note on pleasure. Venus is in Taurus for most of June. So that is very, very like underlining the pleasure piece. The big news of the month, though, astrologically, is that on June, to the Cancer and care note, is that on June 9th, Jupiter leaves Gemini, where it's been for the last year, and enters Cancer. And Jupiter is the teacher, the mentor, the planet that has to do with what we believe and why, with expansion, with kind of uninhibited growth. Jupiter is no breaks. So it's like you see a lot of astrologers talk about Jupiter as being lucky or Jupiter as being like kind of uniformly a good thing. And that's depending on what it's doing in your life. Like, that's not necessarily true. Because if something is being rough and unaddressed and not dealt with, Jupiter sure will come in and make that the main character. So it's really important to be mindful about, like, even the benefic planets are not like uniformly positive net effect in one's life. But the nice thing, I will say, the thing that does tip us toward because I will say June has some of the best astrology of the year. Actually, it's a very, very rough year, but June has some, especially the end of June, comes with some really nice reprieves that I'll talk about here in a minute. But a lot of the reason that I think June is going to feel more nurturing, like there's more access to care, more desire to care for others, is because Jupiter fucking loves being in Cancer, where it can focus on the growth of the spiritual life, the emotional life, caretaking, community, what counts as home, what is family. Cancer is, if we strip it down elementally, it's the cardinal water. It's the beginning. It's the summer solstice. It's the beginning of summer in the northern hemisphere. It's the rushing river, and the technical term here is that Jupiter exalts in Cancer. Like when a planet is really both in sync with a sign's archetype and really supportive of it, it's in its exaltation. And there are a lot of astrologers who think that a planet being exalted is actually more powerful than a planet being at home or in domicile. But because we're moving from a year of Jupiter in Gemini, where Jupiter is not well resourced, Jupiter is in detriment, to a year where Jupiter is suddenly exalted and uber powerful and really capable of resourcing us when it comes to belief, education, spiritual life, things like that, it's going to hopefully bring more ease. I have that hope that it's going to bring more ease, especially for folks like B, for whom Jupiter is their ascendant ruler, or for folks like me, for whom, based on perfection years, Jupiter is our current time lord. Especially big news, because Jupiter is just so much more resourced to do his job, to help us grow what we want to grow, expand what we want to expand, learn about what we want to learn about, attract students, attract teachers, attract people, and be attracted to people who are doing the kind of heart work that we want to be doing in this current moment. I will say on that note, my practical note is more of like a practical spiritual note, which is that whether you're already working with Jupiter or if you are just interested in devoting yourself more to Jupiterian themes like education, belief, spirituality, then it's a great time to just start saying hello to Jupiter in the sky, and perhaps even lighting a candle for him on Thursday, which is his day. I did a whole episode about Planetary Days, which we can link in the show notes. And so for folks who are keeping track at home, this is the third major planetary ingress of the year, following both Neptune and Saturn moving from Pisces into Aries. And this is also then the third consecutive shift of a long cycle planet from a mutable sign to a cardinal sign. And so I'm going to explain what that is. Stay with me. If those are technical terms that you're like, what the fuck is that, Jeanna? We're right there. Collectively, we are moving to a place where there is, on the surface at least, less willingness to explore options and more desire for certainty and a solid direction. Again, this is not a net good or a net bad. It is very mixed. Mutable signs like Gemini and Pisces, where all those planets were even last month, or a few months ago, I should say, they're just more flexible. Mutable signs transition us between seasons. Gemini and Pisces in particular are, I would say, the most mutable of the mutable signs because they're also dual-bodied. They're represented by the twins and then the swimming fish, and they're just more able to move between, to collect, to respect, to discern and disseminate like different ideas, feelings, and perspectives. Whereas cardinal signs like Aries and Cancer, which initiate seasons, are very, this is how we do it. It's like, but this is how we fucking do it, and you better get on board. It's the ram and the crab. Like, there's a lot of direction and a lot of protection in cardinality. And I think Jupiter coming in is just really going to intensify this energy in a collective collective sense. Because the thing to remember again is that like regardless of who you're getting your astro forecast from, if it's me, if it's another astrologer, many other astrologers, it's that to remember that astrology is not automatically like positive or negative, and also to remember that like everyone under the sky is experiencing this. So it's not just the people you agree with. Everyone's going to be under this Jupiter in Cancer, like the folks who work at ICE, as much as the activists who are fighting for the release of folks from ICE detention centers and their neighbors who are making human chains. Like, everyone's under it. So my hope for the resistance half of the folks out there is that this consolidation of a desire for direction is going to help move the needle much more aggressively. That is my hope, is that especially like whether it comes from politicians or not, who the fuck knows, but my hope is that we are going to see a much more aggressive left out of this energy. And if you don't feel it right away, like if Jupiter moves into Cancer on the 9th and you're like, I feel the exact same, no worries. Jupiter takes about a year to go through a sign. So while folks who have personal planets or points in the early degrees of cardinal signs, which are Cancer, Aries, Capricorn, Libra, may experience its influence pretty quickly, your own personal Jupiter in Cancer story may take a while to become apparent. And that is so normal. Definitely check out the Cancer house of your chart for more insight on the specific topics that may be coming up for review or expansion. But in the meantime, I'm going to do I know I've been talking for so long. I'm going to try to make this quick.
Wait, can I add something before?
Yeah, of
Let's
course.
make it even longer. No, I just,
No, go for it.
the date that that Jupiter moves into Cancer
Mhm.
is 6/9/2025. So 9. So
Mhm.
699, and nines just cancel themselves out. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to point out that being the key astro move of June is happening on a 6th day in a 6 month.
Wow,
And
that's
then
so
the
loud.
only other number in the equation truly is 9, which is our collective umbrella of always. So
Damn.
that actually feels really highlighted.
Yeah.
Love
No,
it.
thank you for saying that. That is so interesting and
Mhm.
really underlines the care piece, the
Totally.
collective community piece. In terms of our more quickly moving boots on the ground astrology this month. First, June itself is kind of dual bodied every year because every year it's kind of first half of the month is Gemini season, second half is Cancer. So those are just very different energies. But you know, the first half of the month is Gemini season. It's flirty, it's social. There's a full moon in Sagittarius on June 11th that is very cute and very good for investing in your romantic, creative endeavors. Even frankly, Sag is very much the zealot, the politician. So that's also a really good time for doing like political or spiritual actions. It really supports deepening bonds with the people and organizations and just shit that you believe in. And then on June 20th, we move into Cancer season. So happy birthday, B. That's
You're
not your
welcome.
birthday, but like it's your season.
Happy
And also Jupiter being in Cancer during Cancer season, I think is so supportive for the Cancer babies, especially both. It just sounds so dual when I'm saying it to you right now. Fucking life, man.
Sorry about that.
But hopefully it is a more resourced birthday season for everyone with a Cancer sun this year. And also the new moon in Cancer on June 25th is so sweet, so fertile for planting seeds. Honestly, that last week of June with the new moon is some of the best astrology of the year. So just a really great time to, whether you're planning trips and activities or are like, I need to start my novel, great time to start investing in things that you really care about. And I don't know, care is really I also didn't read your section, B. I actually never read y'all's sections if I can help it, just to
Yeah, I
like
usually don't much either. I just
keep
skim it
it.
a little bit sometimes.
So it's very funny that what I wrote to by way of wrap up is that care is really the vibe of June. if I had to describe Jupiter in Cancer in a sentence, it would be expanding resources and networks of care. And so that, plus the fact that it's Cancer season, plus the fact that Mercury is in Cancer for most of the month, which we'll talk about more in the cauldrons. Like, so communication is more emotional and more connective. Venus is in super cozy Taurus, wanting to hunker down and do homemaking. Like, it's just very putting down roots energy. And I kind of can't get over the fact that we use the same language for June. Yeah. That was so much, but thank you for staying with me. This year is just really big astrologically. Like, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, all are changing signs. It's just very, very big.
No, there's a lot going on, and I'm glad we're making space for it, because I'm excited for Jupiter to go into Cancer. So, like, I'm glad you're talking about
Me
it.
too.
It's my second house. I'm like, let's go. Like, please.
All of my beloved Instagram reel astrologers are like, Cancers are going to get a break. And I'm like, great, let's do it.
Good. I mean, again, the piece that they're not saying is that, yes, Jupiter is going to be really supportive and really, sorry, not to be like, let me tell you.
No, but tell us. Like,
but it's because Jupiter is going to be squaring Saturn and Neptune and Aries. Like, that's the thing. It's like, yes, Jupiter's there being a tremendous resource. And Jupiter in Cancer is much more powerful than Saturn in Aries is in detriment. Or no, not detriment. It's in fall. It really fucking struggles. So Jupiter in Cancer is much more powerful. Is kind of in the overcoming position, you might say, for that square. But like, cardinal signs are not off scot-free. If anything, Jupiter in Cancer is just a tremendous mitigation to what Saturn in Aries is bringing.
But that feels very much the transition from 5 to 6 energy. It's like, like once you get through 5 energy, like, you are hurt in some way. Like, there's just no way to get through the messy middle unscathed, I believe. And so that's why immediately that has to be met with care, because we're hurt. Like, there is a wound here. Like, we need tending, we need caretaking, but then there's also the tension of we have a really hard time receiving care. I can only speak personally. I am having a hard time receiving care. There's always tension, and like, going through the crisis is not when you build the day-to-day, but it's also not when you unpack the bag. Like, there is, you just have to kind of shove what you need to aside in order to get through. And then that dual nature of 6 and Gemini and everything that you've said, it really does feel supportive, actually, because it reminds us that there's always a both and going on, that like, yes, there is a wound, and yes, there is continuing tension, but also there is care, and we can have both, but we can also turn our attention towards one or the other. I do think the invitation of June is to turn towards the care.
Yes, agreed.
And not to the detriment of all the other stuff, but it's like, that's what's needed right now. So yeah. Meg, please speak.
Yeah. Meg, take us home.
Save us, Meg. No, but it's actually, that's like such a perfect transition, because the card I pulled for our theme card for June is the 2 of Pentacles. And so like, you're both talking about like care and showing up, but also like making the decision to care, or making the decision to accept care, making the decision to recover and resource the self, all just feels like right in line with what we're talking about. So if you're new here, the theme card is just the vibe for the month. It's not a prediction. It's just a, hey, this is how things might feel. This is an idea to engage with. This is something to think about. This is some medicine that might feel particularly good for you this month. And I pulled the 2 of Pentacles, which is so nice. And I love that for all of us. So to carry forward the growing metaphors, all year long over on my newsletter, I have been writing about the suit of Pentacles specifically, and writing through the story of Pentacles. And so earlier this year, and we can share the essay in the show notes if you want to read it, but earlier this year, I wrote about the 2 of Pentacles back in February. And I wrote it specifically as trusting the growth, as well as the grief and relief that both simultaneously emerge when we recognize our own limits. So this can be a card, and I think is often interpreted as a card of really juggling our responsibilities and tasks, of delegating and prioritizing and like figuring out what matters to us and, you know, figuring out how we're going to make everything keep going and keep working. But I think it's also a call to honor what we can do and what we cannot do and just surrender to that reality. It can be comfortable or it can be a relief, and it can also be like really frustrating, or there can be some grief or, you know, irritation or even anger in that. We all have resources. Every single one of us has some kind of resources, but none of us have all the resources. And before you say it, nobody has it all, because billionaires don't have compassion, they don't have generosity, and they don't have humility. So even people,
They don't have friends.
they also don't have friends. Yeah, that's true.
It's very true.
Even people who it looks like have it all are always lacking something. Nobody has everything. It's just not possible. And so the Two of Pentacles can be this balancing act around what we want to invest in, what we want to grow, what we want to do and accomplish and work towards. But it's also a very necessary and often humbling reckoning with what we're actually capable of doing simultaneously. Yeah, do you need a minute with that? I'm sorry. I love you all so
Okay,
much.
for anyone watching, I just put my hands on my face because no, that's like literally the conversation we're having in my household around, and I was going to talk about this in health, but like physical capabilities being sudden and unexpectedly different is incredibly hard. Like looking at the things that you can no longer do just sucks. Anyway, that's
It absolutely sucks. And I'm glad you said that, because it's real. Like there can be, and so it's like that frustration of, oh, I can't do the thing anymore. The acknowledgement of that can be really painful, but it can also then give us an opportunity to say, I can't do this anymore. Like, how do we build some solutions around that? Who can help? How can we delegate? And also, like, to my next point, like, does the thing actually need to happen the way that it has been happening? Or are there ways to adjust? And around like 5 and 6, that energy that you were talking about, that shift of this thing broke and now we're recovering and repairing. Do we need to repair it exactly the way it's been, or can we flex and make space for it to look a new way? I was hearing people on TikTok talk about this quote from Nora Roberts, and I don't have the quote in proper, but the summary is basically that she gets asked all the time, how do you juggle kids and career, which like every person who looks femme even remotely has to answer this question if they're successful in literally any way, and it's very annoying. But Nora Roberts' answer to this question is, when juggling the balls, when keeping things in the air, you have to remember that some of the balls are made of plastic and some of the balls are made of glass. Some of the things are really resilient and some of the things are fragile. And I love this metaphor, especially for the Two of Pentacles and the juggling idea that so often comes up in this card, because it emphasizes exactly what we're talking about. Some of the things on your plate are always going to be more important, more precious, more worthy of your careful attention than other things. Not because the balls don't matter, but because they can bounce around or afford to be dropped and they're not going to break. And I'm going to take her metaphor even farther and say some of the balls are made of rubber and you can bounce them between people or pass them off to someone else, or even just drop it and not pick it back up. In other words, some of the balls don't need to be juggled by you at all. Some of them are already being juggled by other people. And those people might consider those balls not rubber or plastic, but precious glass, and want to make that their primary focus. Okay. So as a theme for this month, the Two of Pentacles, I see as a call to balance your desire to do it all with a reality check that you can't. I love you so much, you can't. Nobody can. It's not because you don't work hard or because you don't care enough, but it's because we all have to make decisions all the time about what's the most important and what we're willing to make time for, and also to look at where we need to ask for help or lean on other people. So this card is an opportunity this month to get real with yourself about which things are delicate glass and which things are sturdy plastic, and which things you just want to let drop or let someone else worry about. So those themes of care and reciprocity and balance and pleasure, it's loud, right? What do you want to invest in personally? And what's something that would be even better if you invited other people in to help you juggle, or to take the thing over, or to just give you permission if you need it to set it down? And how can you commit to doing your thing while trusting that other people are going to keep doing theirs? You know, how can you kind of find your lane and commit to it and stay in it? So I pulled 2 other cards for us this month as ever, a truth card and a dare card. And our truth is really a mean little question that I hope haunts you this month is basically what it is. It's an opportunity of reflection, a way to challenge yourself or something to think about. And I pulled the Three of Cups, which I think is very sweet.
So fucking loud.
That can haunt me. That's
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's not a bad thing. The Three of Cups is lovely. Our truth is really about vulnerability with our beloveds and the tender ongoing work of community. I think we've already mentioned it like 10 times, but if you haven't listened to our latest conversation, we're not just talking about spiritual community specifically. We're mostly talking about general community principles and what it means and how to build it and how to maintain it and when it's hard and when it's lovely and why it's necessary. The Three of Cups is a card that often does get associated with community and also celebration, chosen family, the people that show up for us. But 3 as a number can be really raw and expressive and kind of like messy, you know? And so I think it's an important reminder that relationships are hard sometimes and they take effort, and that effort is not always going to be neat and tidy, which doesn't mean it's bad. Like, again, just like Jeanna was saying about astrology, like tarot cards aren't really positive and negative or good and bad. They just are. And relationships being messy is part of what makes relationships, right? It's not just about the happy, joyful moments of bonding and celebration and achievement when everything is easy. It's also being willing to tell someone when they're hurting you and navigating hard conversations, or acknowledging when you yourself have fucked something up, either accidentally, without realizing it, or like on purpose. The Three of Cups can be about being real and authentic, especially in moments when it is hard to be. It's letting other people see all of us, not just the carefully cultivated social media versions of ourselves. And so as a truth card, the Three of Cups for June asks, where are you finding true joy and where are you holding parts of yourself back? What does it mean to let other people in, especially to the messy parts? And what does it look like and feel when you actually do it successfully? Plus, how are you intentionally showing up for other people and letting them show up for you? Again, with the care thing, it's loud. It's right there. The last card I pulled that's like general before we get to our cauldrons is our Dare card. And this is an external challenge. This is just like something to try out, a place to push yourself a little bit, a risk to take. And I pulled the Emperor, which, like, Fee, when you were talking about we don't build day to day in crisis, the Emperor is the building card. It is the looking at the mess and going, okay, how can we organize this? How can we edit this? What needs to be adjusted and what needs to be supported? The Emperor has this power and structure that, depending on who you are, might feel really good or might feel really stifling, right? Back to that cardinal mutable conversation. Depending on who you are, that kind of organization could feel really protective and safe and wonderful, or it might feel aggravating and frustrating. We're all going to have our own relationship to rules and limits. So instead of going that direction hard if it doesn't feel great, I invite you to think about this archetype as one of devotion and discipline to the ways that we focus our attention and practice following through on our desires and our ambitions and our promises. In the story of the Majors, the Emperor follows the Empress and just gives some necessary guardrails and milestones to help all of that creative flow and expressive energy and messy joy find a little bit of organization and protection. It's not about stifling, it's instead wanting to make sure that the magic lasts. So this month, June 2025, Jesus Christ, I dare you, I'm going to say it. I don't like that I wrote this, but I'm going to read it anyway. I dare you to make plans for the future. I dare
That's
you.
rude.
I know.
I love it.
I wrote it and I hated it and I'm reading it now and I also hate it, but that's why I think I have to say it. I dare you to make plans for the future. I dare you to actually organize your dreams into next steps. I dare you to think long term about something in a world that wants us to be trapped in daily survival. What are you focusing on and what does that look like and what do you want that to become? What are you making and trying out alone and within yourself, but also alongside other people? And what are you willing to work for, even if it takes time and patience to see the results, like talking to crows? I have to call out that our cards hit 2, 3, and 4. They follow that, they like land right in a numerological cycle in different expressions. And we've got, earth and water, and then however you see the Emperor, some people associated with Aries and that cardinal fire, some more cardinal energy.
For me, the Emperor is Mars.
Yeah. And I like that too. Like there's all these different ways to see it. And I don't feel particularly invested in any of them, but I wanted to share like that fire energy can be really, really there. So if thinking about 2 is like the choice to do a thing or the commitment to the thing, and then 3 is the messy, gorgeous first draft of the thing, 4 is like the hankering down, the getting serious, the making it happen. It's the follow through, like it, which just to me feels like the big action item for June. Like, how can those boundaries help us get shit done and make the changes that we want to make? And like, how can we actually like see through the things that we're imagining, even if it requires recovery and care and collaboration? Chill.
Calm, cool, collected.
This is one of like the louder, I think, forecasts in terms of all of our stuff being just very. The Venn diagram is a circle. The 3 of Cups, I love that card so much. And it's been one of my low-key favorites, I think, since I started reading tarot. But especially in recent years, I've come to associate the 3 of Cups with the 3 Graces or the Charities out of Greek mythology. And I think that's such a sweet association for this month, just in terms of like the emphasis on care, on recovery, but also on like what is good and joyful about those things. The names of the 3 Graces, they're interpreted as meaning a lot of different things, but one of my favorite little like trilogies of meanings are that their names mean joy, splendor, and good cheer. And I think there is such a kindness that's available to us in that energy of like that being blessed by, kind of like you were saying, like no one has it all, but what is it to be blessed by the 3 Graces or by the Charities? And it's to have joy, like splendor, like the beauty of art in one's life, and the good cheer and mirth of connectivity and togetherness.
I love that so much. That's beautiful.
I wrote something in my notes earlier and then didn't say it. And I'm so glad that it came back around, because the first thing that came through when thinking about June was beauty, love, joy, pleasure, and continuing the art vibes of last month. And I didn't read the rest of the sentence, but I wrote, now our lives, ourselves, and our loved ones are the canvas. And I feel like that's what you just said, Jeanna, which is that this 3 of Cups and the astrology of Jupiter and Cancer and all of this very like generous, nourishing energy really is what does abundance look like if it's not something we have, but something that we all share and hold together.
Yeah.
Because if none of us have everything, then that means if we all come together, I mean, that's very 3 of Pentacles, actually.
Like, but I'm not mad at it. Like,
but also, I think 3 of Cups. Like, it's you know, there's the dyad of 2 is great, but the trinity of 3 is better. Like, you know. Also, Meg, I hadn't heard. I love Nora Roberts so much. Like, just her books. Like, I've read. I feel very neutral about her books as a serious romance reader. But like Nora Roberts, the person, the author, the professional woman in public space, I am obsessed with how she like comports herself and like the kind of shit she'll put it down. Like she will go hard for it. I love her so much. And I had never heard that quote and I like almost cried. I was like, oh my God, what a gorgeous reframing.
I loved it so much. I had already like written everything, and then I was on TikTok yesterday, and then before, because we're recording this in the morning, and it was like literally last night, and I saw someone talking about that, and I was like, oh, that's the perfect 2 of Pentacles metaphor, like for juggling and thinking about which balls are the most precious, which ones do we want to make sure don't fall, which are the ones that we're the most focused on, and which ones is this like, okay, if this falls, I can literally just pick it up and it will be fine, or I can bounce this over to someone else and they can handle it and it's no problem. I just loved that idea. It just felt so resonant and correct.
Yeah. It's interesting too, you talking about like people, I feel like that metaphor is so often used as it's just the solo person who's juggling, but that makes me think, I can't believe this is what's coming to mind, but like of Cirque du Soleil and like the juggling acts that, and like it's impressive when one person is doing a lot, but the most impressive juggling acts they have are when they've got like multiple people trading items and like they're like standing on top of each other and changing the height. Like it's a like the act of juggling as actually a group sport like a team effort is a meta is in that you were saying, Meg, that I'm like, ooh, that's juicy.
I like that.
To quote B, that's juicy.
That's juicy. It is. Okay, let's get into our cauldrons because so much. I actually almost messaged y'all the other day and was like, what if we did the cauldrons first? Because I feel like my cauldrons are really loud this month. I feel like so much of what we wrote down like came up kind of in our lives before we recorded this. But what came up for finances in June and the 6 energy is the essence of Robin Hood, the character, the archetype, the story of Robin Hood. And this idea of like, yes, 6 is reciprocity and mutual aid, and that's great. But like 6 is also, June is also Pride Month, and Pride is a riot, which we will talk about later in my cauldrons. But here it's like, what does be gay, do crime really look like for us in June 2025? And
these are the important questions. This is why you're here.
That's really the TLDR of this whole forecast. Be
Truly.
gay,
Be
June
gay,
2025, be gay, do crime.
Do crimes. Yeah, I think so. We might get in trouble for that, but I feel like that's also kind of the vibe. I don't know. Yes, but Robin Hood is about redistribution of wealth, and it's about stealing, the actual art of stealing from the rich to give to the poor, and what it would look like if we as a community kind of backed away from like morality and ethics in pursuit of a larger ethical picture, a larger moral picture, which is that if you are hoarding and you will not give up what you are holding too tightly to, then at some point we must take it from you. I feel so like bashful about putting this on the internet in the age of.
You're just saying tax the rich at the very least.
Yeah.
At the least, that's tax the rich.
Yeah.
But the beginning, what came across, so I literally wrote Robin Hood, and then Meg posted this in their stories the other day, the opening line of Robin Hood, which maybe has been changed or tried to be suppressed.
I didn't chase down the accuracy of the particular claim in the meme, which
so
maybe that was responsible.
We can put that to the side. But the opening line of Robin Hood is, in times of tyranny and injustice, when law oppresses the people, the outlaw takes his place in history. And I think that's such a fucking good 6 energy, redistribution of wealth, rebellious, financial soup for June is like, how can you see the outlaw from a different perspective? When does the outlaw become the hero? And yes, in essence, be gay, do crimes.
Can I quote something before we get away from the thing? Because I have to quote Brennan Lee Mulligan here. Just one quick little quote from Brennan. Laws are threats made by the dominant socioeconomic ethnic group in a given nation. It's just a promise of violence that's enacted, and police are basically an occupying army. Which is just to say, laws are not inherently moral. Be gay, do crimes.
Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Public persona bestie over here.
Brennan Lee Mulligan, the one straight man I have a crush on.
We left him in this house.
Okay, also, sorry, B, this is just like so excellent. I'm sorry, before I get into the astrology, but like that, just the way that everything you said about the Robin Hood stuff, I was like, oh yeah, and the whole setup of Robin Hood, right, is that the king's like Trump-like brother is on the throne because the king is in fucking Palestine, like invading Jerusalem with the Crusades. Like that's like the backdrop of Robin Hood is that Richard is on crusade. And so it's the use of the kingdom's resources and wealth for colonization that then deprive its own people of like bread and such. Just feels loud right now. Just feels loud.
This is what Robin Hood is the sexiest. That's why that fox is so sexy.
Robin Hood is one of the animated animals of all time.
Didn't need to go that hard, but also like,
but you know,
we deserve.
I'm sorry, Robin Hood is a Gemini, and that's on that.
It's beautiful, love it.
On a very individual personal note for your spending finances in June. On June 8th, Mercury enters Cancer. Through the financial lens of Mercury, Mercury in Cancer is just straight up emotional spending, which I am not here to put judgment on anyone or anything, because Lord knows I do this. And Lord knows that under Empire, you deserve your cozy comforts. But just something to be mindful of, especially since it's followed up by Mercury moving into Leo on June 26th, which is very treat yourself. Given that combination, let's just be extra mindful of spending, budgets, all of that good stuff.
Nobody's going to be happy, but I pulled the 10 of Swords for us. But it feels very like, fuck it, energy to me. The 10 of Swords can feel like there's no good choices. And if you are also on the side of TikTok that's like, save as much as you can, don't spend anything, stockpile, these are like the recession meals you should be making, like you should buy a bidet because they're not going to be able to get toilet paper, here's how to mill your own flour TikTok, which is where I am and it's stressful. You might feel like I just want to lie down and give up, especially around like money and resources and like a sense of truth, since that's what we're kind of talking about. But I really do think that the 10 of Swords is like, fuck it, do what's going to make sense for you and what's actually possible. But also 10 is very, you're not going to go it alone. When I think about the 10 of Swords, I think about the need for a radical perspective shift. And you're usually going to get that from somebody else. And so I will just say that if finances feel rough for you this month, or if the idea of thinking about finances makes you want to literally bury yourself in a hole and never come out, ask for help. Like, pull whatever levers you need to. That might not mean that you need to or are able to literally borrow money, but it might mean that there's someone in your orbit that can help you manage your resources or get access to aid organizations or, talk about your taxes or share the load in some other way, start some kind of exchange program or whatever. Things might not feel great financially this month. They might be fine, but they might not feel great financially, but they're probably not nearly as bad as you think. It's just a matter of not getting in your head too much about what could be and instead just being really realistic and rational as much as possible about what is so that you can actually navigate that and move forward.
It's so funny that you opened by saying the TikTok stuff, that like if you're being stressed out by what you're seeing on TikTok, because I thought of the Modern Witch Tarot with the 10 of Swords, but she's on her phone, like laying down, like on her phone. It's like, unplug.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first thought was, we got to get you out of there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I need to get out of there.
It was a rocky few weeks though.
Yeah, it was bad. And there's been good signs of it. Like I'm like growing some food now for myself. And I've been writing about that and like, coming up with more sustainable ways to store things. And that's all been really good. But yeah, the endless cycle of panic that just keeps getting repeated and regurgitated and slightly repackaged and then goes viral again does feel very like, just get yourself out of there, babe. So yeah, I think if the thoughts are thoughting and it feels like you're in this negative spiral that is just repeating itself over and over, like talk to somebody, ask for help. Like, because we're talking about money and thoughts, it's more likely to be this feels bad, but not this literally is bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the 10 of Swords, I always think of like I love the way that you framed that, babe. And I always think of it as like, it feels terrible, but actually you're kind of okay. Actually you're mostly fine. You can get up. It's just that you're in the phone hole or like what, again, Modern Witch Tarot there, but like, or whatever.
They're little wheels. So like, what are the wheels that you're stuck spinning in?
The hamster wheel that you're running on. Because 10 has the opportunity to step out of it and start a new cycle. But you have to take the step to get yourself out of the cyclone that you're in and like move down a new path. So
I also, on a practical note, want to shout out here Leo at Queer and Trans Wealth is the Instagram handle. Leo's work is amazing. They don't just do financial advising for folks who like quote unquote have money, but they also do a lot of like wealth redistribution, scholarship, resourcing, all of that kind of thing, especially if you're trans and in a red state. So here in the US. So definitely we'll link them in the show notes, but definitely check out Leo's work.
100%. And actually, I'm so glad that you said that, because one of the last emails that they sent was about student loan. Yes. And so it's a great email. We can link it in the show notes as well. But I also wanted to comment on the 10 of Swords because
it's a rough card. So I'm glad you're both weighing in because like there's a lot of ways to go with it. So
yeah. And it makes total sense. Like So you said radical perspective shift, and that brings me back to the outlaw. Like, what are the conditions under which a radical perspective shift is needed to where the outlaw becomes the hero? And in this instance, with literally Leo's last email, it's because the government is going to start garnishing wages for student debt repayment. And student debt doesn't exist in other countries because education is paid for by the country itself. So this is literally the American government stealing from you. And therefore, if the law of the land is tyranny, then you get to steal too. And that brings us back to be gay, do crimes. Okay.
I love it. I love it. I think we should also link to Debt Collective in there just because they're also doing great work around like solidarity. They have a lot of like resources that you can use if you were also drowning in student loan debt and are, feeling away. But just to say, like, I want to just validate that there's a lot of reasons to panic. There's a lot of reasons, like the reason that it all feels so activating is because there's a lot of really scary, hard things right now. And when it comes to money, it's not irrational to have big feelings right now or to be really scared. So I don't want to sound like we're trying to minimize any of that, but just to say, like, take things one step at a time, be kind to yourself, like, and try to align yourself with people that are going to be able to provide resources and care and assistance to you instead of just letting yourself spiral down a scary hole and feel like there's no way out. We're all in the hole together. Like, I have $170,000 of student loan debt. Like, feel free to leave. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want anyone to feel alone.
I'm trying to go into student debt now.
I mean, look, if they are going to make us all pay our loans back, I'm just going to go back to school too. I'm going to go back as part-time as I can, and I'll just be a student forever because I'm like, I can't afford to pay this back. Like, I didn't take that much out. Anyway,
the last thing, sorry, I'm like,
of course the money cauldron is huge. Like, this makes sense.
But also in the sense that Jupiter is long-term wealth and prosperity, it makes a lot of sense that Jupiter in Cancer would bring us, like, Mercury is very local commerce. I think I've mentioned this before. Mercury is local commerce, everyday spending, budgeting, all of that. But if we're talking like long-term investments, like generational wealth, international markets, that's Jupiter. So it makes sense also that like the financial cauldron would be big on a month when like Jupiter literally is expanding the resources and whatnot.
Okay, home in June. I feel like when I think about home in June, I thought about home as sanctuary, which also feels very much a part of this conversation because it's the idea of like, where do you go to escape, to feel calm? Like, what are the spaces that feel sacred to you? How do they bring relief? And I also thought about the artistic effort that goes into building huge churches, like actual physical sanctuary, that's devotion, that's time, that's energy, that's effort. Like, what is keeping you from building a sanctuary out of spaces that you occupy, that you feel good in, and that really do let you metaphorically or literally let your hair down and like relax and take a break from these big feelings, that we've been talking about. And so that's my question for June is what keeps you from making a sanctuary of your home? And then also the other thing that came through about relationships is something that actually my couples therapist says that my wife and I have to deal with a lot, which is don't make roommate problems, relationship problems. So a lot of the day in, day out of like living with someone is like, comes down to household chores, comes home to tasks right now. And this is our situation, but also an offering for everyone for June is like, when are you in an all hands on deck situation? And then when do you stop delineating like what's yours versus what's mine? It's just like, if you have the energy to do something in the house, do it because you're not, then it's off your plate. It's probably going to make somebody else happy. And on the flip side of that, what are you taking out, like your housemates, what are you taking out on them that actually is like a day-to-day chore problem and not actually an emotional relationship? Like when do the dishes mean the dishes and when do the dishes mean like all the other things you're not saying kind of vibe. That's June for house.
As the dish doer, I do
I know the
feel
dishes is a thing. So
the dishes are
Never house.
To be fair, for us, I think the dishes is mostly the dishes.
it's yeah, the dishes is mostly the dishes.
It's mostly the dishes.
When we first started living together, I was like, the dishes are not the dishes, and now I'm like, the dishes are literally the dishes. It's fine.
That's true. It's been a journey
It's been a
for what the
journey.
dishes represent.
Yeah. June 2025. Do the dishes mean the dishes? What do the dishes represent?
Get in the comments.
Get in the comments. So I sort of alluded to this earlier, but with the astrology of home this month is really fucking cozy. Honestly, I really like it. It's really focused on community caretaking between, as we've discussed, Jupiter and Mercury both being in Cancer, Venus being in Taurus, and then Cancer season hitting in the back half of the month. Vibes are cozy. So that's just a great time to invest in your people, invest in your communities, volunteer in a very, very literal way. Like one of the very obvious significations of Cancer is literally like food, cooking, meals together. So whether that means like cooking together with your people or going out to eat or ordering in with your people, volunteering at your local food pantry, like volunteering at your CSA or your co-op or whatever. All of that feels very, very prevalent and top of mind. Also, to Meg's point earlier with like the grow your own food TikTok stuff. Okay, do you have neighbors you can do that with though? Do you have people who like you share outdoor space with or our community garden with and are like, oh, we could actually do some of this as a joint collective? Really focus on shopping your own neighborhood this month and focus on supporting like small businesses, people whose livelihoods you want to support. Cancer, again, very local, very oriented to caretaking. And I really, just think it's a really cozy month for us at home.
I love that. So I pulled the Five of Wands. So I used a deck called Every Little Thing You Do Is Magic. And the Five of Wands in this deck is like 5 dogs in a 5-way tug of war over a rope. And the 2 in the front look like Gus. So I will see if I can post an image to it because I was like, oh, Gus is here. Yeah, the Five of Wands can go a few different ways. I think, what to B's point, like if there is some kind of conflict, is it what you think it is? Is it just the thing or is there stuff underneath it? This could be a great month to find different ways to address that might feel creative or interesting instead of just going straight to you're doing this to harm me. But the way I was mostly taking it is that you might just find yourself craving a bit of a change at home. So with the cozy vibes, if there's like a project you've been putting off or something that just like doesn't feel quite right, maybe it's just rearranging furniture a little bit, painting a room, getting rid of something you're sick of looking at, or otherwise shifting the vibe of the space to alleviate a little bit of friction or make an adjustment you've been putting off, this is a great time to do that. Don't be afraid to look at your space with fresh eyes and to think outside the box and also to break rules as you see fit. We're just all about breaking rules this month and I'm fucking here for it.
Yeah. Well, I think love just is kind of for me a continuation of home this month, which is also very Cancer of me. But a couple things. So first of all, we are in Lover's energy. We're in Gemini season. So obviously we are flirtatious. So I think June could be a very cute month to get your flirt on. And that's in all of your relationships, platonic, romantic, and otherwise. Like, how could you bring more of a flirtatious, joyful vibe to whoever you are around in love? On the flip side of that, though, then looking at the lovers towards the devil, that's where I got Pride is a Riot. So this month, 6 definitely says, like, how are we loving on our people? But it's also then how are we loving on our people in ways that don't look loving, but actually really are? It's like protective, kind of that the Cancer clause nature of it all is like, how is violence an act of love or protection towards a community, which again is that like perspective shift that we've been talking about as well. The other thing that I want to throw into the soup of love is something that my great grandmother always says, and we don't have many like quotes that are passed down from the family or like many ancestral teachings. but she always said you have to use people up the way you find them.
Mm.
And I think that's really potent in
Mm.
relationships and love for June and 6 energy. Is I talk about in 5, like you have to be with what is in order to change. But 6, and especially in love, like part of being with what is accepting people for who they are and how they show up. And then if you want to still be in relationship with them, what are the personal compromises or shifts that or grace given that you give in order to keep staying in relationship with someone? Yeah, you have to use people up the way you find them. I think that's really juicy.
What you said about like love and violence, like we're filming this in early May, and the Rodney Hinton Jr. stuff is really happening right now. And that was the first thing that popped into my head, is like the way that this father is being vilified for simply trying to defend his family and express love for his son, who was very unjustly killed by police. I think it's just very, very loud. The other thing is that there are literally crows yelling outside our house right now. So,
Hey Cheryl, what's up?
I don't know if it'll come up, but it's happening.
I hear them on mine. Yeah. So for the astrology, what I chose to focus on for this cauldron is Venus in Taurus. She's comfy. Like Venus in Taurus, and it's funny what Meg was saying earlier too about home, because it's like Venus in Taurus is also big. The house must be, my space must be like cozy, comfy, correct. But Venus in Taurus is very, and it's funny too that Emperor came up, because Venus in Taurus to me is the Empress. Like it's not just Venus, it's Venus as she is in Taurus, materially, sensually, quite literally, tactile, like with all of the senses. It's very like, I am enough. Like that's fun in relationship, of course. But like to me, Venus in Taurus is very like my pleasure first, like myself first. Gemini season is flirty, Cancer season is cozy, but to me, Venus and Taurus as a through line through both of those is very much about embodying the principles of self-love here, of like knowing you are enough. And obviously relationships are beautiful. Relationships are sacred. I'm literally doing this podcast with my wife. But there is something to that Empress, Venus, and Taurus energy that like understands its worth and refuses to settle, and like understands their body and their energy is sacred, that I think is really worth, regardless of the state of your relationships or whatnot. Like, I think it's really worth spending some time with this month.
I pulled the King of Wands for us for love. So B said flirt, and I agree. And also to Gina's point, like, yeah, I think that the self-love and like the really feeling yourself, that feels very King of Wands to me too, is yeah, just like feeling good about who you are and loving who you are. This feels like someone who knows where and how they shine, who understands the impact that they have on other people, and who is charismatic and charming in their own way, maybe without even trying or being aware of it. I think of the King of Wands as someone who makes people feel good and doesn't mind taking charge or stepping into the spotlight when needed, which is just to say, have fun in your love life this month, whatever that means for you. Let yourself take up space, be bold, and go after what you want. Like, I was like, I can't write this down, but I was kind of like, fuck it, we ball. Like, I don't know, like King of Wands feels very like, just go for it, babes. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, just go after whatever it is you want. Like, yeah.
It's funny that that's what you say about I love the King of Wands. It's really the only king card that regularly comes up for me, like in terms of being, and so I feel a great kinship with the King of Wands because it feels much more kinetic and like, you know, I don't know, public speakery than the other.
No, it's a very charismatic figure to me. Like,
yeah, so I think there is such the Venn diagram is a circle between the Empress and as which I'm kind of understanding as Venus and Taurus and the King of Wands, in that the sense of self is rock solid.
Yeah.
Like rock solid. King of Wands like knows who the fuck they are. And I think that really underscores the like spend time with yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think of the King of Wands as someone who is lit by their own flame. So I think that's very much what both of you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, pride is a riot. Fuck it, we ball.
Like, we ball. Wear the hot outfit, wear the thing that makes you feel good, like flirt with people that you want to flirt with, be nice to yourself, flirt with yourself, whatever that means. But like, you know what I mean? Like catch yourself in the mirror and be like, I look fucking great. Like lean into that energy this month.
Be like B and cut your hair like Leonardo DiCaprio and feel
Honestly,
your
I know
fucking
we
best
talked. I
self.
need you all to know that we talked for like 20 minutes about how much we love Bee's hair before we started recording.
We did.
Especially this particular iteration. These shapes.
Yeah. You shaped for it.
Perfection.
Yes,
It
for
really is
anyone-
giving Romeo and Juliet
I'm
Leo. Like,
obsessed.
and I am a
love
little
it.
unwell about it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's so good.
Yes, for anybody watching on YouTube, I'm now touching my hair too much. But I did cut my hair off. I realized this is the only one that I'm going to have this hair for, because by the time that we record our next one, I will have no hair. Yeah. Okay, health in June.
Yes.
I have taken a back seat from speaking on health. I have something to say this month. What are the day-to-day habits and choices that you know are right for you? And I feel like we talk about this idea kind of regularly about like, if you know what's good for you, then do that. But really that is the practical advice for health in June, is like, who are you? You know, not the you that woke up yesterday, but the you right here, right now. And how have you been denying yourself the bone deep, nitty gritty relationship with yourself, your body, your mind, your spirit, right? We're talking about whole health, whatever that means to you. I really think June is an opportunity to live with yourself a bit more consciously. So I love that that was Gina's advice for love, because I'm like, yes, we are in relationship with ourselves. And what are the ways in which you are not learning your own patterns and not observing your own cycles? And how can you tend to that? The practical advice really is like, start to observe and learn your patterns, and then start to help yourself mitigate some of the struggle. It's a close relationship with yourself that you might not want to be in, but do it anyway.
once again, I'm just like, also, this is why I don't read what y'all write in our little notes document before we do this, because I love finding out in real time with my reaction on fucking camera about like, oh, we wrote the same thing. Isn't that so cute? I do just want to flag, I've been talking about this incessantly for the last few months because it's been so rough. But we do ring in June 1st with the last Moon Mars conjunction in Leo for a while. All that means is stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, don't overdo it. Just like chill. Everyone's drinking their water right now. Everyone's doing great. So just like June 1st, you know, fuck it, we ball with water bottles and sunscreen. On June, and this is where the thing with that so relates to what B just said comes in, is that on June 16th, Mars goes into Virgo. So this means a lot of energy to look at health, because Virgo is so particular about how we do the details. This is actually really, really supportive transit-wise for making the kind of small incremental changes that are going to add up over time, which is exactly what B was saying. Like, you don't have to go from 0 to taking a whole HIIT class every day. Like, and that's the trap that I get into personally, like with fitness and health stuff, is that I'm like, oh, well, if I don't just suddenly commit to an entirely new like weekly routine. No. Like, I recently re-downloaded the Peloton app. I don't have a Peloton, but I like the app because it has a lot of like easy to implement yoga, Pilates, stretching, easy weights classes, meditations, all that. And this is not sponsored by Peloton, but also Peloton, please give us money. Because I do love your
We're right
app.
here.
But this is just to say, on the app, there are so many 5 and 10-minute classes. And so something I have to really tell myself about my own journey back into fitness after like years of surgeries and recovery is that like it doesn't happen all at once. Like what B was saying about noticing your energy levels, noticing your patterns. Like this is Mars in Virgo is so much about the results we get from the accrual of incremental small effort over time. So I really love that this will be really supportive energy here at the top of summer as the weather is nicer here in the Northern Hemisphere and we are perhaps feeling inspired to move more.
You both have basically said like everything I had written down because I pulled Judgment. I love the Judgment archetype. It's honestly one of my favorite cards in the deck. I really see it as about an important choice and a major transformative moment. But what I was thinking about is that when it comes to health, it's really easy to get lost in our own stories and to hold ourselves up to a standard that is a past self in a very literal way, right? Like I am 39, I am going to turn 40 this year. What if I stopped thinking that I was going to weigh the same thing that I weighed in college? What if I thought that maybe I'm not going to run and move my body the same way that I did when I was running marathons? Like literally you're changing and growing, and that is a good thing, but stop holding yourself hostage by looking at the younger version of your health or your body and saying, why can't I still do this thing that I used to be able to do 20 years ago or 10 years ago or even 5 years ago or 1 year ago, right? What do you believe about your health, and what stories are you telling yourself about who you used to be that no longer apply? And how can you forgive yourself for aging, which is not a thing you need to forgive yourself for, and instead just acknowledge that time exists and we all are aging and growing in different ways, and you can do things now that you couldn't do then, but you also can't maybe do things the same way that you used to, and that's fine. It's totally fine. It's not a value judgment, it just is. So give yourself some grace around that and some compassion around that, especially when it comes to your physical self. This world is hard. We're all getting older every day. Like, be nice to your body and acknowledge what your body has accomplished in the past, instead of thinking that you're gonna magically get back to that person. You just get to be the person that you are right now, and that's a beautiful thing too.
That is beautiful.
I love that.
I also just want to add something in that vein for people who are experiencing more temporary bouts of change physically. That feels like something that just wants to come through, is like sometimes that's the hardest thing, of like knowing it won't be like this forever, but here in this moment, this is your capacity or this is what you're experiencing. And 9 being the collective energy for the year is reminding us every day of this too shall pass. And that's like for better, for worse. So I think, you know, in the moments where we're in really good health, this too shall pass. You might be in poor health soon, but also on the flip side, if you're in poor health now, this too shall pass and you'll be in better health. So a lot of the grace that sometimes is more accessible in a longer term situation, just by nature of needing to accept where you are, I think can be harder to offer ourselves when we're in a space of temporary disability or change in ability. So yeah, just anyone listening who's going through something that will end, like just show yourself a lot of grace here and it'll be over.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Obviously, I'm not having chemo, but I'm 10 weeks out from surgery, and I'm still very frustrated that I can't just like lift all the things and take the trash out, and like, you know, it's so real. Even with those small things, I think it can be really, really, really frustrating. And then obviously with the bigger things, it feels really loud and heavy. So be nice to yourself this month, y'all, and always, but especially this month.
June 2025. Be nice to yourself.
Yeah.
All
Be
your
gay, do crimes. Be nice to yourself. Fuck it, we ball.
tax the rich.
Tax the rich.
Tax the rich, eat the rich.
Okay, well, this has been, I love that in Gemini season, it was like, let's get longer. So here we are back to our like 90-minute length, but it's been a dream as always. Thank you for listening and for being with us. And we love you. We are online at callyourcoven.com. We are on Instagram at callyourcoven. We're on every major platform, including YouTube. So if you do want to check out how Meg and I have now created very weird bookends to Jeanna with her short hair, you can see that on YouTube. And
I love it. I think we're doing fucking great.
You're doing great. You're both so hot.
so hot, so good,
smart.
so pretty, so smart.
So smart.
Do either of you have anything that you want to shout out before we wrap?
Yeah, I do. As of this recording, my joint lecture with the brilliant Meg Keane will be available for immediate download. It's called Creativity Through the Houses, because creativity is a spirit that doesn't just live in the 3rd house or the 5th house of your chart. It lives in every house. So we'll have that in the show notes. And then I also have a reading. June is such a fertile month, creatively speaking. So if you would like to be getting back into a practice, I have a reading literally called Unsticking Your Creative Practice that might be of interest.
And I have a book coming out. I guess this is the time to talk about it, since this is the June forecast and the book comes out the first week of July, which is
it is
fucking crazy. I'm just going to say that. It's crazy. So the book is called Tarot Spreads. It's my 2nd book, and it is all about not just reading and understanding spreads, but also writing your own tarot spreads and also revising spreads that you might find on the internet and be like, this is almost right, but isn't exactly what I want. Really, the core of the book is about understanding the questions that you bring to the cards and figuring out how to map those questions into your reading in a way that actually is going to give you the kind of feedback and support from your readings that you actually want. So pre-orders are a huge help. Depending on when you hear this episode, will be increasingly important. But I also have some cool stuff on my website at 3amtarot.com that is all about rebelliousness and rethinking the questions and challenging what you bring to the cards. So if you pre-order the Tarot Spreads book, Gus is excited. If you pre-order the Tarot Spreads book, you can find a brand new tarot spread collection called Rebel Hearts on my website, and I will send you the collection for free. You can buy it if you want to give me money, but if you've already pre-ordered my book, I would love to send you this collection as a thank you. So we'll put links to that in the show notes, and also just a direct link to bookshop.org. Highly recommend supporting your local bookshop if you have one that you really love. And if you'd like a signed copy, either Finding the Fool, which is my first tarot book, or Tarot Spreads, which is the 2nd book, you can order from Astoria Bookshop here in New York, and I will send you a signed copy. So yeah.
Also, I think it's important to shout out that the Tarot Spreads book, yes, it's about everything Meg said. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of new spreads for y'all in the
So many
book.
spreads.
It is the resource I wish I had years ago, because it's got more than 100, right?
Oh God, I haven't counted. There's so many spreads.
It's got so many new and unique tarot spreads that you want this.
Yeah, and I put in a bunch of journal prompts, but also there's a lot of activities and exercises. So I'm not just telling you what to do. I'm also walking you through it, using spreads of my own. We tweak them together. There's space for you to write right in the book, which is what I dreamed about with Finding the Fool. So it's nice that it's happening with this one. But yeah, there's hundreds of spreads in there. I think I haven't counted because I'm afraid, but there's a lot of spreads in there.
And its birthday is 7/7, which is also my birthday and my wife's birthday. So it's a great day to get a book.
Incredible.
Yeah.
B, what have you want to shout out besides your incredible hair?
But yeah, for anybody watching right now, it's the best it's ever looked. Do I want to shout anything out? Sure. I am on Substack, Swimming in the Soup. June is going to bring you weekly forecasts for paid subscribers. It is also going to bring you a summer solstice tarot reading by me. Bless you.
Okay.
Who knows what else? June. But that's what I can guarantee you is weekly forecasts and a cool summer solstice tarot spread. Not spread, tarot reading. I don't know. I'm vibing in June. I don't know what I'm doing.
The forecasts are great. The readings are great. We do also have, if you love me and B talking to each other about numbers and tarot cards, you can also still get our joint lecture, Spiraling Through the Wisdom Year. It's available on my website.
All right, cool. Well, cool. Little Coven, we'll see you in a few weeks, maybe to talk about trash magic and deity relationships. We'll see. And then
we'll find out.
We'll see you in July.
We get do crimes.
Bye.